love it. I love it.
Really?
Love can empower a woman, but not as much as hate.
This was a woman who was going to blow.
When an English rose loses her royal connections, someone will pay.
All of a sudden, her dreams begin to disintegrate.
A spurned wife derails her husband's new life.
She became obsessed with him, stalking him.
And nothing will stop this first love.
It was intentional, it was deliberate. It was something, you know, with feeling.
These deadly women all seek a lover's revenge. Buckingham Palace, the ultimate symbol of England's pomp and ceremony, home to Britain's kings and queens. Only a few privileged outsiders get to know life inside these hallowed halls.
Hey, Sal.
Yeah.
Working-class girl Jane Andrews will be one of the lucky ones. In 1988, the shop assistant answers an intriguing ad in a magazine.
But it's got to be someone wealthy. I mean, it's not just anyone that puts an ad in the Lady, is it?
Yeah.
I'm going to go for it.
The job is beyond Jane's wildest dreams. Working for the Queen's daughter-in-law, the Duchess of York, Sarah Ferguson.
All of a sudden, Jane was being allowed to walk down the corridors of Buckingham Palace and other great houses to go with Sarah Ferguson wherever she went. She allowed Jane Andrews to become a central part of her life. And as a result of that, of course, Jane Andrews could move in circles that she would never dreamt of. She went to the best parties. She met famous people. She earned a good living.
Rubbing shoulders with England's elite, Jane meets her own Prince Charming.
Jane Andrews.
Lovely to meet you.
Likewise.
You look absolutely ravishing.
The wealthy stepson of a Greek shipping magnate. But Dimitri doesn't know what he is in for.
The picture we found there was actually very disturbing, that she had a propensity for manipulation, used violence on a number of occasions, certainly stalking behaviour, could be very foul-mouthed.
She was extremely dramatic, extremely manipulative.
I'm a dresser.
Ah, yes, the Duchess of York.
You've done your research.
Most certainly, ma'am.
This was a woman who was always on the edge.
Jane sees rich men as her ticket to the high life.
Jane wasn't so much looking for love as she was looking for financial security, a big, fat wallet.
This lovely music. Would you like to join me as well?
Well, I'd be inclined to say yes.
Let's do that then.
She's been described variously in the media as a bit of a gold digger. She had airs and graces above her station.
It's been great, really, it has.
It doesn't
This
take
isn't
long before Dimitri
to England,
sees
this is going
Jane's
separate
dark
ways, yes?
side.
What do you mean it's not working out?
Exactly that. It's not working out. Exactly.
This is a woman that pushed. She always wanted more. So she always wanted more time. She always wanted more affection. She always wanted more money, being taken out to better restaurants.
Are you leaving me?
Being dumped by her lover brings out the worst in Jane.
Leave me, you bastard!
Goodness sakes, you're making this
She
very
no longer acts like a lady.
It's ridiculous! I'll show you ridiculous!
You know what? You're making this incredibly easy, okay? I'm leaving now. Thank you.
You can't
Thank
leave me!
you.
You're a bastard!
She couldn't stand rejection.
I'll show you!
When he rejected her, she ripped up his clothes and stole a cheque from his checkbook.
The world he brought to her, the wealth, the parties, the important rich people, it would all be gone. If a guy comes home and finds that his suits and shirts have all been slashed to pieces, I'd head for the airport.
Dmitri escapes. But the next man won't be so lucky. Desperate not to lose her entry into high society, Jane soon finds a replacement.
Tom, what do you do?
Tom
What kind of
Cressman.
things are you into?
Fast cars, boats. Yes.
He comes from a rich family and is a successful businessman in his own right.
Yes.
I met Mr. Cressman a couple of times. He was quite an interesting personality. He ticked a lot of Jane's boxes. He was good looking, he had wealth, he had a good taste, beautiful cars, lovely flats, well furnished, and he had that sort of authority with him that she liked. She always thought to herself, what can I get from this person?
Jane has had a taste of life at the top, and she wants to stay there, whatever the cost.
The match between Tom Cressman and Jane Andrews was made somewhere other than heaven.
And here I am.
Tell more.
No, you tell more. Tell me more about the cars.
Any man that got involved in a relationship with her would either be very brave or he's got a death wish.
'90s, London, England.
There's an ad in here for a person.
A working-class girl answers an ad in a magazine and ends up working for the royal family. Jane Andrews not only walks the corridors of Buckingham Palace, but has a wealthy high society boyfriend.
Her relationships had a sort of central core about them, and it was always about what more can you as a man give me?
And generally the sort of people she would have affairs with or relationships with would have been people of high net worth, people with some influence.
Tom, I'm serious. I'm giving you an ultimatum of 6 months until you have to propose to me.
Her future seems assured. All she needs is a marriage proposal.
Can't we talk about this on the hops? Yeah. Come on.
On the holidays.
Yeah. Come on.
Well, as long as we do discuss it.
Okay, come on.
But things take a turn for the worse. Jane gets fired by the Duchess.
Sarah Ferguson probably thought that Jane Andrews was getting a little bit above herself, and it became a convenient excuse for her to cite money troubles to let this woman go.
The official reason was downscaling.
I think Jane may have been way, way out of her league working for the royal family with such a demanding job. The stress must have been enormous.
For a woman who can't cope with rejection, it is a crippling blow.
Her losing her job to Sarah Ferguson basically set her off. This was a woman who had a job for life, earning good money. All of a sudden, she's cast out. She takes a PR job, she fails at that. She then becomes a shop assistant.
Her rags to royalty story is over. Jane is back at the shop front.
Do you know, Tom, I love you.
Now her only hope of keeping up appearances is Tom.
Tom Cressman is her way out, her meal ticket.
So I love you too.
That's it. Is that all I get?
From now.
She always pressurised men. She always pushed them into a situation where they would walk out on her.
Tom went away for a weekend where he met another woman. Shortly thereafter, Jane found emails that he had sent that woman describing the old girlfriend similar to an old pair of slippers. Nice to have around, but didn't really want her. This devastated Jane.
And all of a sudden, her dreams begin to disintegrate. Not only has she lost the job with Sarah Ferguson, she's now losing the man she loves. And that is the beginning of the end for her.
I think he was very worried by some of Jane's possessive behaviour, and I think he was thinking, do I want to have this for the rest of my life?
A letter Tom has hidden in the closet confirms there will be no wedding.
He wrote a letter. I do love you, but you're a bit too intense. I need time, I need space, I need to think about it. I'm not ready to make a commitment to you.
The moment it became apparent that he wouldn't marry her, Mr. Cresman was fair game. And that's the trouble with Jane Andrews, is that there is no end to that emotional spectrum. She loved him, she hated him.
Tom! Tom! What's this letter I just found? Did you write it? Is it true?
There was a confrontation. Tom told Jane he had no intention of marrying her.
I need time, I need space to think.
Oh, I'll give you all the space you need!
Jane and Tom got into a terrible fight.
Yes, we're having a row.
Tom called the police and told them if somebody didn't come over and stop the fighting, that one of them was going to be hurt.
You can see where this was going. Increasing rows, more bitterness, more anger. And this was a woman who was going to blow.
The police never come. And Tom will never see daylight again.
She came into the room. She hit him across the head. There was an indentation on his forehead. That would clearly, at the very least, have stunned him.
I think Jane hit Tom in the head first because she wanted to make sure he could not fight back.
She took an 8-inch kitchen knife and stabbed him through the chest, and it hit the left ventricle, which caused massive internal bleeding. He basically bled to death.
Jane may have thought of killing Tom before this horrible night, but it really came into focus for her when he completely rejected her. At least that's what she felt. And she ended the pain, and she made him pay.
Jane flees and sends bizarre text messages to her rich and royal friends.
Sends text to various people, including the Duchess of York, stating that Tom had been murdered by somebody else, and she was surprised by it all. Now, you know, that's her first reaction. That shows a very manipulative and calculating person.
There's enough evidence to make Jane the prime suspect. Police track her cell phone and 2 days later arrest her. Jane's defense is that she's the victim. Tom attacked her.
She murdered him in life, and she murdered him again in death by trying to destroy his reputation. Tom was, in fact, Mr. Nice Guy. I mean, the evidence was overwhelming, and the jury clearly believed the prosecution story because we had amassed so much evidence.
In 2001, Jane is sentenced to life in prison. She's eligible for parole in 2012.
If she had shown remorse at the earliest opportunity, had admitted her guilt, she probably would look at manslaughter and probably got 5 or 6 years.
I don't think Jane is a born killer. I think there was a sequence of events in her life that led her to staying in a bad relationship and then ending that relationship badly.
When a marriage becomes violent, the victim isn't always the wife.
Nothing Greg could do could make Shayna happy.
But who will protect a frightened man?
She could not control her temper.
The unusual, violent nature of this was something that he just didn't see coming.
Rigby, Idaho, 2000.
Hey, kids!
Greg Whitmore appears to be a lucky man in more ways than one.
You're welcome. There you go. Come on, Greg. Give her some.
A soldier, he survives the First Gulf War and returns home to start a new life with his sweetheart, Shanna Parkinson. The couple is blessed with a son and a daughter.
I got another one here for you. There you go. Make sure you eat, okay?
Greg was a very easygoing guy, loved his kids, and real family-oriented type of a person.
But the happy times don't last. Greg is married to a troubled woman.
It appears to me that Shayna had more than one untreated and possibly undiagnosed mental disorder.
Without any professional help, Shanna self-medicates. She steals prescriptions and drinks heavily.
Taking excessive amounts of alcohol and sedatives would only make that condition worse. She also had an uncontrollable temper.
There is one target for her dark moods, her husband.
What the hell, Ben?
Good work.
Don't you want me?
She would lash out violently at Greg repeatedly. Nothing Greg could do could make her happy.
Keep your hands off me!
She could not control her temper.
Shanna's behavior was very bizarre, very strange. She was someone who was very difficult to figure out what was going on inside her head.
Greg hides their marital problems, fearing no one will understand. A man being the victim of domestic violence.
What do you want me to do? If I hit her, I'm the bad guy.
But when the beatings get worse, Greg confides to his friends.
The whole issue of men who are battered by wives instead of wives who are battered by husbands, that was an underlying issue.
I think whoever Shayna might have married would have been subjected to her wrath, her irrational behavior, and her problems. Greg just happened to be the one that got it.
By 2002, Greg, who bravely fought in the First Gulf War, can't take the violence in his own home anymore.
Gonna walk out the kids, are ya?
He moves out. After being in control of Greg and their marriage for almost a decade, Shanna isn't willing to let go.
She was really into drama and hate. I think her hatred for Greg grew because he rejected her.
Greg's hope that leaving home will end the violence will soon be shattered.
When Greg rejected Shayna and wanted a divorce, It was more than she could handle. She went nuts.
Rigby, Idaho. A perfect marriage deteriorates into spousal abuse. But Shanna Parkinson isn't the victim. She's the attacker, emotionally unstable and doped up on pills and alcohol. She beats her husband, Greg. Fed up with the abuse, he moves out.
She didn't want to give up, didn't want to let go of things that she was holding on to from that marriage.
I love it. I love it.
In 2003, Greg is divorced and free to find love again with 29-year-old beauty Karen Cummings. Not everyone is happy.
Greg and Karen met. That obviously stirred up further emotions in Shanna. It further exasperated the situation.
Insane with jealousy, Shanna stalks her ex-husband and his lover.
Asshole! She became obsessed with him, stalking him, calling him telephone stalking. Sometimes a couple of hundred calls a day, no matter where he was.
Far out.
Oh my God! Greg, she's outside!
She was essentially in a situation where she just didn't want to let go.
Her behavior becomes more obsessive and dangerous.
What the hell is she doing?
Jesus.
She'd lash out violently. She could not control her temper.
Shanna had already shown signs of using Greg before he met Karen.
We're calling the cops! We're gonna go get her! You were right. She's nuts.
The children still live with Shanna, but Greg is worried about their safety and attempts to gain custody. Greg's bid to protect his family only adds fuel to the fire. Shanna breaks into Greg's home and steals everything precious to him.
When she got all of Greg's possessions together, including his prized trophies and a picture of his mother, and burned them, she was symbolically killing Greg.
It's common to have custody battles and so forth, but this was one that was taken to the extreme.
Just days later, on February 1st, 2004, Shanna pays Greg another unexpected visit.
Don't you two look cozy?
How'd you get here?
Shanna snapped, lost total control of something that had been building up, and stabbed Greg multiple times.
When women are motivated to kill based on revenge or jealousy, oftentimes we see that they fly into a rage, and the rage becomes uncontrollable. They don't stop stabbing until they feel like it, until they've run out of steam. Greg was stabbed around 30 times, his girlfriend 13 times. It's clear the target of the attack was Greg. Whoever went after him totally hated him.
Shanna thinks they are alone in the house. But they are not. There is a tiny and terrified eyewitness.
Karen had a 5-year-old daughter who witnessed the murder from another room.
The little girl tries to help her mom the only way she can. She bravely calls 911.
Very emotional to hear the frightened call of a 5 or 6-year-old girl telling the dispatcher that she'd just seen her mother murdered. When police got to the house, it was just described again and again, and just in terms of being a bloody, grisly murder scene.
If I was called in to do a profile and I have a man and woman murdered in their bed, he's got 30 stab wounds and she's got 13, the first thing I tell the police is look for a former wife, girlfriend, or lover as the killer.
Within hours, 911 receives another call. It's the killer.
Police said she was very confused and incoherent. She was in a very disoriented state of mind.
Could you please step out of the car?
Shanna is found several miles away in a neighboring county.
Are you hurt?
No.
Ma'am, you're covered in blood.
Evidence literally dripping from her.
I don't know what happened.
Why don't you come with me? Just come with me and go straight.
Shayna Parkinson had so many mental, behavioral, and emotional problems. It doesn't surprise me that it culminated in murder.
With indisputable forensic evidence, Shanna Parkinson is found guilty of murder. In August 2004, she is sentenced to life with a minimum of 27 years.
Any man can be in a marriage with disagreements or fights, but I think the unusual, violent nature of this was something that he just didn't see coming.
This is one of those sad cases where the perpetrator needs to be taken away from society forever, so the rest of us are safe. She needs to remain incarcerated for the rest of her life.
If we get gas, we won't have enough for food.
3 a.m., September 28, 2008. In Yankton, South Dakota, 3 teenagers, all under the legal age, are pulled over for a random police check.
I'll do the talking. Just stay calm.
They're almost 800 miles from home and are acting strangely.
Is there a problem, officer?
What are you doing out here so late?
Just heading home.
Where's home?
Just up ahead.
How do you explain the Texas plates?
It was a suspicious time for them to be, and they're in Texas plates, etc.
You got an answer?
The kids were all acting nervous, and their stories weren't matching up.
The suspicious officer detains them on a minor violation.
Step out of the vehicle.
Breaking curfew. But soon, 2 of them will be behind bars on the most serious offense of all, murder.
Jennifer and Paul did not think this crime out very well.
early 2008, Roanoke, Texas. Hard-working mom, Susan Bailey, juggles 2 jobs to give her children the best.
This was a working mother who had gone through a divorce but still had a home, raised her 2 kids the best she could. Made sure they got to school, made sure they had the things that they wanted and needed, and was, for all purposes, a very caring, loving mother.
Recently divorced, Susan relies on her 17-year-old daughter, Jennifer, to help look after her younger brother.
Kids were alone a lot, but Jennifer was old enough to watch after David, so they just hung out at the house by themselves a lot. She was, you know, for the better part, just a good kid. You know, she went to school and she did her chores and she went to work and she did what she was supposed to do. And her grades were always good.
Neighbor Michelle Davidson says Jennifer was well-behaved, but not a typical teen.
She didn't have a lot of friends. She just didn't fit in at school. Quiet, kept to herself. I'd watch her walk home from school, reading a book all by herself. Just a really quiet girl.
A chance encounter changes Jennifer's world forever. She's never met anyone like 16-year-old Paul Henson.
Paul was, I guess, what we refer to as goth.
When darkness falls and the moon reaches its apex, the channel will be complete.
He felt like he was a master manipulator. And he convinced all these people around him that he was some sort of warlock.
Be with us, Jennifer.
The modern-day pagan believes he has mystical powers.
Teenagers are sometimes drawn to counterculture things that they almost know will upset their parents.
Jennifer is smitten and believes every word Paul says.
Past life, I loved you. And in a future life, I will love you again.
Jennifer's mind was a fertile breeding ground to be influenced by someone like Paul.
They can tear us apart in this life, but they can't destroy our love.
Jennifer got into worshiping witches and warlocks and basically dabbling with the devil.
Paul believes in reincarnation and convinces Jennifer they have been lovers in a past life.
That's beautiful. You think so? I wrote it for you.
And can be lovers for many lives to come.
In order for them to be together in a future life, which they expected to have, that they had to remain together.
But there is an obstacle in the way. Susan Bailey.
Mom, do you mind?
She tries to stop her daughter from seeing him.
Some kind of play. Come on, let's go.
Susan was trying to protect her daughter from someone that she saw as bad for her. Susan did not think Paul was right for her daughter. Susan was right about that.
But Susan has no power. Jennifer is already under Paul's spell.
If Jennifer had met the right guy, she would have been influenced possibly to go to college and be a doctor. She met the wrong guy.
A mom and daughter's close relationship is over. Jennifer now considers her an enemy.
Jennifer, I asked you to come and sit at the table. No, get out.
From, you know, the start of dating him, she was defiant and really turned a complete 180 in her personality. She didn't get away. She was yelling and screaming and completely opposite of what she used to be. Mousy, never said a word.
I know you're upset with me, but I want you to understand I'm not trying to hurt you. No, you don't get it, Mom.
She was completely out of control.
Jennifer and Paul want to stay together without any interference. Susan Bailey will soon be a victim of lovers' revenge. Roanoke, Texas, 2008. 17-year-old Jennifer Bailey has fallen under the spell of her first love. 16-year-old Paul Henson, a 21st century wannabe warlock. Jennifer's mother, Susan, bans her daughter from seeing Paul.
Her mom had thought that they had broken up. She had forbid her from seeing him. And the police came to their house and were looking for Paul Henson. He was reported as a runaway. And her mom did not think he was there and was surprised to find his belongings at her house.
Where are you going? With him. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're staying here with me. You're not going. Let go of me. Let go of me. Get out of my house. Go. What are you doing? If you come back again, I'm going to get the police on you. You don't have to go anywhere with that boy. I hate you.
She saw the red flags and thought that she had successfully broken them up and that she had kept Jennifer away from Paul.
We have to do this tonight.
Furious with her mother for trying to keep them apart, Jennifer plans to steal the family car and run away to Canada.
Those things I wrote, I wasn't making them up. Are you ready to meet your destiny?
Before their long trip, the teens plan a farewell, fueled by revenge.
She didn't like to live by her mother's rules and decided that the best way to have what she wanted would be to kill her mother and run off with Paul.
It was intentional, it was deliberate. That's the scariest part.
She was stabbed 27 times in the neck, almost decapitating her. This was a brutal, vicious attack that was intended to be violent, intended to shock.
Slit her throat.
Intended to vent rage.
"43-year-old Susan Bailey dies at the hands of her own daughter.
The cold-blooded killer of her mother. The one person who brought her into this world, who cared for her, and that, to me, is just horrific.
Let's get out of here.
There are words to describe what Jennifer did. Going to the dark side and brutally murdering her mother, and then showing no remorse whatsoever. And the words are natural-born killer.
Free of her mom, Jennifer and Paul set out for their new life, taking an innocent child with them.
Jennifer's little brother eventually got drawn into the plan. I'm guessing by Paul and Jennifer. He was, as I see it, nothing more than a tag-along.
That was the heart-wrencher. That was the bigger shocker, that he had possibly anything to do with it, which, you know, he followed Jennifer around, you know, whatever she did, he followed behind. And if she was going somewhere, he wanted to go too.
If we don't get food. It's okay, I'll do the talking, just stay calm.
There is no magical ending for Jennifer's dream of eternal love. It's over before it begins.
Is there a problem, officer?
What are you doing out here so late?
Just heading home.
Paul and Jennifer in Susan's vehicle.
So how do you explain the Texas plates?
They were in South Dakota,
You got an answer?
and they were pulled over. They were very young and suspicious.
When South Dakota police contact colleagues in Jennifer's hometown, the mindless plot unravels.
All of you, out.
This crime was solved very quickly because of good police work, and Jennifer and Paul thought they could literally kill her mother in a brutal way, take off in a car, and go to another country and live happily ever after. That doesn't happen, especially when there's murder in the mix.
In 2009, both teenagers stand trial.
I'd really thought about going, and then I thought, no, I really can't look at her in the eye. I read what went on. Every additional piece of information was just horrifying, just to find out more and more of, what happened and how premeditated it was.
The one-time lovers are now enemies. They blame each other for the brutal murder.
During the court proceedings, it's their opportunity to finger point at each other, and that's exactly what they did.
In the end, they accept plea bargains and admit killing Susan Bailey.
She never really took any kind of full responsibility or felt any kind of remorse.
Both escape the death penalty and are sentenced to 60 years behind bars. Jennifer Bailey will be eligible for parole in 2039.
It's hard to feel anything for her. She's just like a smudge on this city.
First loves are supposed to be exciting and fun and sweet and a normal part of growing up. But they can turn deadly if the wrong two kids fall in love. I'm guessing Jennifer will never forget her first.
These women once loved and cared for those they murdered. Jane Andrews craved high society, but killed her Prince Charming. Shanna Parkinson wanted her husband dead, not happy. And Jennifer Bailey turned on her mother in the name of love. These deadly women couldn't take no for an answer. Nothing could stop their lover's revenge. When a woman has the ideal life and the perfect man,
Do you know, Tom, I love you.
He ticked a lot of Jane's boxes. He was good looking. He had wealth.
the fear of losing both,
The parties, the important rich people, it would all be gone.
can be explosive.
She couldn't stand rejection. She was trying to elevate herself from being from a relatively working class family in Grimsby up to mixing with the royal family, mixing with millionaires, people of high net worth, and trying to elevate herself into a social arena that perhaps someone from her background is not used to. Had a good education and business acumen. He used to sell car covers for historic cars, you know, for old-fashioned sports cars, of which he had a number himself. Had a Alfa Romeo Spider 1963 and 7 or 8 other, you know, what I would call historic, good quality cars. So he was into, I suppose you would term it, boys' toys. And, you know, clearly very successful at it, very good businessman. Probably, had he lived, he probably would have gone on to become a millionaire.
Not only did Jane stab him, on the way out, she tied the door shut so he could not escape. She wanted to make sure he was dead.
We directed the local police to a location, and they found her slumped, sort of semi-conscious in her car, in the lay-by. She got arrested, nominally arrested, bearing in mind she'd taken an overdose. And, you know, one thing I say to people, if you're going to kill yourself and you mean to kill yourself, you don't take paracetamol.
She painted him as a man who was into kinky sex, dressing up, other forms, and that she'd been abused over a number of months, and that it culminated in him attacking her that night and her defending herself. She said she can't really remember the specific details of it, but she had the knife and he must have fallen on it. Well, this had it all, didn't it? It had the royal family. It had, you know, an attractive woman. It had sex in it. It had wealth. You know, it could have been an Agatha Christie story. In court, you know, Jane Andrews put on an act. I mean, it could have been Meryl Streep in that box, not Jane Andrews. She was dressed all in black. She looked cowed. She looked down, very rarely looked at the judge, very rarely looked at the jury. This was a woman who was a victim, and that's the role that she played for a number of days.
Friends that knew them described their relationship as a couple that went from being very devoted to each other to hateful spite. Women kill boyfriends, lovers, husbands, ex-husbands for a variety of reasons. One of the most common is they feel entitled to do it. You're leaving me? You've upset my world. I get to kill you.
I'll go check the other rooms.
Jennifer Bailey leaves evidence scattered throughout the house.
They then discovered a baseball bat in Jennifer's room, laying on her bed. They also found 4 knives under couch cushions and an orange extension cord hanging from the shower curtain down into the bathtub. I think they had different plans of the way they were gonna kill her.
The knives being stashed around the house makes what Jennifer did scary and pathological. That's terrifying.
Susan's mother gave her victim impact statement, and this was her granddaughter. You know, so there's still huge emotional family ties there. It puts her in a very awkward position because she's lost her daughter at the hands of her granddaughter. But Jennifer remained stoic even through that.
She's just put a big black mark on us. So I can't say that she'd be thought of fondly.
Some women love company when they kill.
But you have homework.
Daddy's little girl has a new man in her life.
Go home.
He was pretty obsessed with her.
If you really loved me, you would do it.
He would do whatever she asked him to do.
We would do everything together.
Two sisters want to hide a secret from their boss.
You look beautiful.
The sisters were acting as one and saw themselves as part of each other.
And a bright student
It's the only way.
gives her boyfriend some homework.
I've seen some gruesome things, and this would rank one of the top.
These deadly women are twice as evil. They are double trouble. In 2010, in the desert city of Tucson, Arizona, evening meals are special for the Sanchez family.
Clarissa said she'd be home.
You'll be home soon.
The one time of the day when they can all be together before Mom Sarah starts her night shift.
She was a nurse, so she worked nights. And then she would come home and Andrew would go and work during the day.
It gives 38-year-old Andrew time to bond with his daughters.
He always spoke highly about his wife and daughters.
This weekend, are we going camping?
Yeah.
Cool. Sounds like fun.
16-year-old daughter, Clarissa, holds a special place in his heart.
See you tomorrow.
Okay. All right. Take care.
Clarissa had pictures of her and her father from her last birthday that said Daddy's Princess across the bottom. They seemed very happy, smiling.
I met a real hunk.
No way.
Yeah.
But soon, another man commands Clarissa's attention.
You're really cute.
Her first boyfriend, 19-year-old Ray Coronado.
Clarissa's parents were okay with Ray in the beginning. They thought that he was respectful.
What do you want to do tonight? Do you want to do something?
It doesn't matter.
She didn't have a lot of friends outside of Ray. He was her best friend.
I mean, I have a lot of fun whenever I'm with you.
Clarissa's parents don't mind until the relationship becomes all-consuming.
But you have homework?
They had concerns about the amount of time the couple was spending together.
When parents forbid a daughter to see someone, they better keep an eye on things and not turn their back.
The couple can't bear to be apart. Ray starts sneaking to Clarissa's bedroom at night.
I missed you.
Me too.
He would come to her window after everyone in the house had gone to bed.
You weren't waiting long, were you?
Nah.
They would talk or hang out at her window for hours.
So good to see you. I get it. I get it.
Ray, go home.
The late-night visits test her father's patience.
Clarissa, it's getting out of hand.
Andrew worried about the relationship because Ray had become overly possessive of her.
Andrew just wants to protect his daughter.
He's too possessive.
He decided that that was it, that they could no longer date and go on these day-long excursions together,
You can still see each other.
but that they could remain friends.
No more going out.
I should be allowed to see who I want.
You live under my roof.
It really rankled her that she wasn't allowed to do what she wanted and with him.
You're only 16. You should be out having fun, not spending all your time with him.
What Clarissa wanted was more important than what her parents wanted for her. And so what her parents wanted for her meant nothing.
Clarissa doesn't want to be Daddy's little girl anymore. She continues her forbidden romance with Ray.
If you really loved me, you would do it.
You can't be serious.
I'm so serious.
Clarissa decided that she had had enough. She was tired of her dad, so she told Ray that if you really loved me, you will kill him.
Ray would do anything to keep her from breaking up with him.
In the early hours of October 20th, 2010, the teens put their harebrained plan into action.
He very quietly snuck in the house around 3 in the morning.
Ray musters his courage while his sweetheart waits.
Ray stood there for maybe half an hour, deciding when he was actually going to do this.
But murder doesn't come easy for the mild-mannered teen. (2010), Tucson, Arizona.
What?
I don't know.
You've got to.
16-year-old Clarissa Sanchez and her boyfriend, 19-year-old Ray Coronado, have been separated by Clarissa's father.
Clarissa could have merely run off with her boyfriend. Lots of teenage girls do. But Clarissa wanted to kill her father.
I don't believe that Ray would have ever thought of something like this without Clarissa manipulating him.
Clarissa convinces Ray murder is their only chance at love.
It was a horrific, horrific crime. There was blood everywhere.
Despite her father's horrifying condition, Clarissa remains ice cold.
She stood there and watched him gasp for breath for approximately 5 minutes before her father finally expired.
Okay, now.
Now, the cover-up.
Clarissa wrapped a sweater around his head because he was bleeding so profusely. They wrapped him up in his bed sheets, and they dragged him outside.
They leave his body in the backyard, and they just start bleaching everything. They bleached the floors, they bleached the walls. They spent 3.5 hours cleaning the room.
But the teens have no idea how big their job is.
This is hopeless.
Let's flip it.
They want people to think Andrews left town. They pack some of his things and dump them and Andrews' body in the desert. When Sarah returns from her night shift,
Where's your dad?
He went out last night.
she is surprised that Andrew's not home.
Sarah started getting an inkling that something horrible had happened.
I think I better call the police.
Wait a few hours. I'll make you a cup of tea.
Now Clarissa adds a cruel twist to her mother's anguish.
Use Dad's phone to text Mom.
Using the victim's phone, she concocts a shocking story.
Sarah believed that her husband had run away with another woman and that he wouldn't be coming home.
Not only did Clarissa brutally murder her father, but then she tormented her mother as to why her father wasn't there anymore. Totally heartless.
The texts continue for over a week
Thanks for bringing her home.
until Ray's father catches the pair, sending the messages.
Look, those texts you've been getting aren't from your husband.
Ray Coronado's dad contacted Sarah and said, I think they have Andrew's phone.
Clarissa and Ray have been sending them.
And I think it's them that have been texting you.
I'll go.
Sarah was just beside herself.
What's going on?
The ruse is about to be exposed. With a routine change of bedding.
They turned over the mattress and saw the stains. And then they called the police. What is going on?
Dad is never coming home.
What?
Read back.
Clarissa confesses to her sister.
I think Clarissa told her sister not because she felt guilty, but because she was angry and wanted her sister to know what she had done. She wanted credit for it.
Clarissa then tells all to the police.
Clarissa told police that it was kind of her fault because she had told Ray she wanted her father dead. She took the blame for that.
Ray Coronado is convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. In 2011, Clarissa Sanchez pleads guilty to second-degree murder. She is sentenced to 21 years in prison.
She must serve every single day of that sentence under Arizona law.
Clarissa put a teen romance above her father's life.
Really, to Clarissa, what matters is that she gets to do what she wants. It doesn't matter who she has to hurt to make that happen.
Clarissa Sanchez is one of the most heartless teenage killers I've ever looked at.
A sisterly bond is hard to destroy.
You look beautiful.
The need for them to be together was absolutely crucial.
Even when it turns toxic.
Their bond with each other was, to say the least, unhealthy.
Beware of sisterly love.
Everything grows and grows and grows until it explodes.
(1920). In the sleepy French village of Le Mans, southwest of Paris.
We have a new girl, someone you will be pleased to see.
16-year-old Christine Papin and her little sister Leah have an unusual upbringing.
Now it is your job to show her everything I've taught you.
Monday is always wash day.
Their mother has abandoned them to an orphanage, while she enjoys a life of her own.
Don't fuss. Oh, look at you.
The girl's mother was a very vain and critical woman. Her daughters could do nothing right. She didn't even like the way they looked.
Clémence Papin sees her children as assets
Are you taking us home?
and is about to put the eldest to work.
I have work for you. Plea too? Of course not. She is too young.
She wanted Christine to go into service so that she could earn money to give to her mother.
We must go together.
Stop this nonsense.
For them, the idea of being separated was something that they couldn't bear because they'd already formed such a close bond.
Christine is sent away to be a maid, while little Leah is left behind. Six years later,
this is a very good reference.
Christine is a good employee, starting work for the wealthy Lancelin family.
And you can cook?
Yes, madame.
Madame Lancelin came from a well-to-do family. She'd married a solicitor. He was often absent for his job, and so it was left very much to her to run the house.
And can you start straight away?
I would be very grateful if you would employ my sister too.
If you can prove yourself to be a good worker, then maybe we can arrange something.
Daughter Genevieve may soon have someone else to wait on her. Christine's sister. For most of their life, the two sisters have only each other.
I will make one to match.
We will do everything together.
The sisters formed a very close bond when they went to the Lancelin, and they had no outside interests.
Sharing a room in the attic, they shut out the rest of the world.
The relationship was clearly obsessive. Here were two human beings, each of whom was providing for the other the kinds of support and emotional closeness which the vast majority of us seek from a variety of different sources.
You look beautiful.
Christine and Leah's bond with each other was, to say the least, unhealthy. It didn't happen overnight. It happened over years.
The sisters are very close, but their relationship with the Lancelin family is falling apart.
Ah, afternoon tea.
Christine and Leah lived lives that were very distant from their employers.
Girls, make sure the dresses are pressed for the morning.
Of course.
There didn't seem to be any conversation between them apart from Madame giving very basic orders.
Why are they so surly this afternoon?
Madame Lancelin's domineering ways are frustrating the sisters.
Oh la la, I'm not having that!
Sorry, madame.
She could be critical as an employer and probably reminded them of their own mother, whom they hated.
Pick it up!
Do not touch my sister.
There was clearly a transference onto her of a great many pent-up feelings against the mother.
The sisters' only comfort is each other and their awakening sexuality.
I love you.
I love you too.
It's a kind of confused sort of mother, daughter, sister, sister, lover relationship.
Then, one night, Madame Lancelin discovers her servant's strange behavior, and tensions boil over.
It was bound to end badly for someone.
In 1933, in the town of Le Mans, France. Maids Christine and Léa Papin have been hiding something from their family employers. They are lovers.
Everybody knew about this incestuous relationship. Nobody was mentioning it.
Be careful with the iron today.
When they became intimately involved with each other, it probably deepened their bond.
I need my blue dress iron today.
The bond was already unhealthy. This made it worse.
When a faulty iron sparks an electrical short, it brings the sisters' secret out into the open.
The iron made the lights fail.
It may have been the moment which allowed Madame to make some kind of remark that they were having an affair. They reacted more powerfully than they needed.
This was a crime that needed two to commit it, because it needed two to fuel the emotional flames.
The sisters tore out the eyes of the other two women with their bare hands.
It was a symbolic erasing of the moment. You didn't see what you thought you saw. You didn't see that at all.
The sisters haven't finished yet. They want revenge for every harsh word.
They belabored them with, among other things, a hammer.
And they cut the legs of the women.
Alfred Hitchcock could not have written a story about what the girls did to the bodies of Madame Lancelin and her daughter.
That evening, Monsieur Lancelin is locked out of his house. Finally, in frustration, he calls the police.
Police came back with him, and 3 of them went into the house. They discovered Madame Geneviève on the landing. The eyeballs must have been a terrible shock. The crime itself was exceptionally horrendous.
Their initial hypothesis was that there was a mad killer on the loose and that they were expecting to find Christine and Leah massacred in their beds.
But what they found instead was that they were both huddled up together in bed.
Having made absolutely no attempt to abscond or cover up their crime.
The sisters admit their guilt. In 1933, Christine Papin is found guilty of murder and sentenced to death by guillotine. Her sentence is commuted to hard labor for life.
Christine was obviously the more dominant sister. She was the one that actually instigated the attack, and Leah went along with her.
Younger sister Leah is sentenced to 10 years hard labor and released in 1943.
I don't think Leah was a natural-born killer. I don't think Christine was either. Christine became ill, and she led Leah down the path. After that influence was gone from Leah's life, Leah was okay.
Then, the most surprising twist.
Don't fuss.
When Leah is released, she returns to the arms of the woman who first abandoned her, her mother.
No matter how awful Clémence was, there was always a kind of a love there, but a sort of love-hate relationship. And the bond was so strong, it was never really broken.
Most parents will do anything to protect their child.
Parents never stop worrying about their little girls.
It's my life.
But when a teen rebels,
she doesn't strike you as a menacing figure.
Who protects the parents?
How could she do that?
New York City, a magnet for those with dreams of a better life. Like Hong Kong immigrants, 55-year-old Stephen and 41-year-old Chi-Lin Leong.
They were trying hard, like a lot of immigrant parents in New York City who are working their tails off to make ends meet.
Can I have a bit more of that cabbage there, honey? There, okay.
Both worked in restaurants in that area.
Oh, good.
Both often worked overtime or double shifts to support the family.
Good, okay.
They want their children to live the American dream. 17-year-old Connie is a diligent student with good grades.
Stop that nonsense! You have work to do, Connie.
They were strict, only because they wanted them to finish their education.
Connie is a bright young woman.
Be good. Work hard.
I will.
Connie went to a very prestigious, competitive science and math prep school.
She was a very smart girl and had a good future ahead of her.
Punch, punch, boom!
But soon Connie's studies are sidetracked
Next time.
by 20-year-old Eric Louisant.
When Connie met Eric, she really went over the moon.
It's punch, punch, kick, kick. Let's go.
He didn't work, he didn't go to school. Someone that just had a lot of time on their hands and wasn't doing anything worthwhile.
Boom! Yes!
Woo!
Eric was a little bit of a cipher.
What do you do now?
I'm into manga.
He had developed something of a fantasy world for himself.
It's my favorite character.
He was into comic books and Japanese animation.
Don't your parents want you to go to college?
Sure, but I don't talk to them.
For Connie, it doesn't matter. Eric is her soulmate, her first true love.
From there, they started having discussions about having this sort of alternate fantasy life themselves.
And in their fantasy, they will live happily ever after. Connie introduces Eric to the family, eager for her parents' approval.
Wow, really good. So, Eric, what plans have you made for the future?
Plans? I don't really have any plans.
But that's something they can't give.
Eric is studying martial arts and Japanese culture.
Her personality had changed since she had been seeing Eric.
At college.
No.
She started disobeying her parents or staying out later than she was supposed to.
I'll make more tea.
She was starting to slide off the scale.
I'll help you.
She stopped going to school.
They hate me.
She was usually an A student, and now she was getting C's and D's. She just wanted to be with him.
Connie's father is summoned to her school.
Is there any reason you missed so many classes?
This made her parents furious that she wasn't showing up at school.
No problems at home?
The problem is her boyfriend.
You always blame Eric.
Parents didn't approve of their relationship and dissuaded her from going out with Eric.
Your grades have slipped considerably. Something has to change.
It will.
He wanted for her to finish her education and then perhaps find a boyfriend.
I assure you.
It's my life, and you are not going to tell me how to live it.
But to love struck Connie, it's her parents who are in the wrong.
She had reached her breaking point, and she could see no other way out.
East Harlem, New York, the year 2000. 17-year-old Connie trades school books for her 20-year-old boyfriend, Eric Louisant.
Missed you.
Her hard-working parents think she is ruining her life.
They disapproved of their relationship, and they were like in love, and they wanted to be together.
Wouldn't it be great if we could go on a road trip?
The pair fantasizes about running away together.
As if my parents would let me.
They had this, like, you know, Romeo and Juliet thing.
It's our life.
He had idealized this idea of running away with her.
We need money.
Just two things stand in their way.
It's the only way.
November 2nd, 2000. Stephen is enjoying a rare night off work.
Connie's father was home from his job at a restaurant, watching TV.
I'm sorry for yelling at you.
Connie came around and started talking to her father to distract him.
It's not Eric's fault. You always blame Eric.
Eric snuck up behind him, quickly put the belt around his neck and started strangling him.
Stephen puts up a fight.
Connie, help!
But has no hope when his daughter joins in.
Can you imagine the horror? The last thing you see in your life is your own child holding you down while someone kills you.
It took a couple minutes, but eventually they were able to strangle him to death.
After Connie and Eric killed her father, they had time to think things through.
What do we do now?
We wait.
Some kids might have said, "Oh my gosh, that was terrible. Let's get out of here." They didn't.
As the mother came in, he was hiding behind the door.
Dad's not home.
Should be here by now.
And just started choking her as well. And again, Connie assisted. There was no more movement.
Connie didn't have to hold her parents down, while her boyfriend choked the life out of them. But that is what she did.
They seemed to think that they were going to live happily ever after this.
Over the next 3 days, while Connie's parents lie dead in their bedroom, the pair plunders the family's life savings.
They took some of the jewelry and other valuable objects in the apartment.
I think it was about $5,000 or $6,000 worth.
Their fantasy road trip is becoming a reality. But first, they need to get rid of the bodies.
They put the father's body in a plastic bag, put him in a shopping cart, down the elevator, walked him down approximately a block to the East River, and dumped the father in. And then they got another shopping cart, and they did the same thing with the mother.
The couple hides in a New York hostel, but their adventure is short-lived. The East River gives up their secrets. The bodies are identified. And when friends tell police about the family troubles,
How much will we get for this?
police are led straight to the prime suspects.
Connie, Leon?
To some extent, this wasn't fully real to them. It was just sort of a means to the ends to let them live this sort of nice fantasy life.
Eric and Connie's fantasy ends abruptly. They don't even concoct a story for police.
Connie was very cold. She showed like no emotion when she told us that her and Eric had just killed her parents. It's probably the most open and shut, one of the easiest cases I ever worked.
In 2002, Eric Louisant and Connie Leong are convicted of 2 counts of second-degree murder. Eric is sentenced to 30 years to life. Connie will also spend 30 years to life in prison.
The baffling thing about this case was, 2 young people that just graduate from never having been in trouble before to a double murder. And it's hard to explain.
They had everything. They had the future. They wasted it. I'm still trying to figure out exactly why.
The story of Connie and Eric is kind of a classic Romeo and Juliet, except instead of killing themselves, they killed her parents.
These deadly women had company when they killed. Clarissa Sanchez swapped a father's love for freedom. The Papan sisters silenced their accusers. And Connie Leong found her fantasy was really a horror story. These deadly women teamed up to murder. They were double trouble. For some women, the only marriage vow worth obeying is till death do us part.
Give up this ungodly behavior.
A shamed wife takes the moral high ground.
Continue.
She would have been mortified by her husband's behavior.
A bustling housewife whips up a recipe for riches.
Eat this thing.
It has no taste, but it's eminently lethal.
You need him to sign this.
And greed drives 2 women to forge a fatal bond.
She really didn't care who she had to target to keep that income coming in.
When these deadly women marry, they're not hoping for happily ever after. They are brutal brides. The late 1800s. in the wealthy farmlands of Santa Ana, California. 27-year-old Katie Cook marries the man of her dreams.
I now pronounce you man and wife. You may kiss the bride.
They seem to be a very loving couple.
Her husband, a recent widower, is one of the county's finest gentlemen.
Tom Cook is a very wealthy man who has land which is producing a good deal of revenue.
And Katie makes the ideal bride.
She grew up in Orange County. Her father was also a prominent rancher and farmer in the peatlands west of Santa Ana.
I don't think she knows who she's marrying.
To the outside world, they look like a very well-to-do, upper-class couple.
But this refined country gent is not all he seems. Tom doesn't want his new wife to lift a finger.
Tom hires many women to work on the ranch.
For what we are about to receive, may the Lord make us truly grateful. Amen. Amen.
In this good Christian household, the Lord and Master has more basic desires.
Would you like some, sir?
Oh, yeah.
This is the kind of guy you want to keep your teenage girls away from.
So the work went well on the farm today?
Oh, yeah. We were very, very hard.
He is a threat to the moral virtue of young women.
Move along, Magda. Yes, madame.
At first, Katie tries to turn a blind eye.
For Katie, to be the head of a good Christian household was everything. But because of Tom, she couldn't be that.
Her husband's twisted tastes go further than a roving hand.
There is a lust in man no charm can tame.
Tom is addicted to 19th century pornography.
Virtuous actions are born and die.
He loves dirty poetry.
When a man loves a woman in haystacks high.
Tom's reading material was a source of extreme shame and embarrassment to Katie, and she wanted no part of it.
His leg, her leg.
It was definitely a sleazy situation.
One beautiful mind upon a mind.
In this conservative community, a wife without virtue is an outcast.
Women are held as very saintly people on pedestals, doing what needs to be done to make a Christian marriage work. And if it's not working, it's their fault.
Katie was so upset over her husband's behavior and the type of marriage that she found herself in that she started losing weight, not sleeping, and was crying a lot. These are all signs of a very, very anxious and depressed young woman.
Tom pays no heed. He drags his wife even deeper into his perversion.
He brought in a German servant girl and had her strip in front of both Tom and Katie.
Magda. Shut up, woman.
And this, of course, horrified Katie.
Continue.
At a time when a man's word is law, Tom's wife and servants are at his mercy.
Sit down.
Divorce wasn't really an option. And being a younger woman with no means, where was she going to go?
Stripped of her last shred of dignity, Katie knows there's only one way to free herself from this sinful cycle.
Tom degraded Katie over and over. Eventually, that was bound to get to her. And it did. (1899), Santa Ana, California. Brash womanizer Tom Cook has caused a stir in this conservative town.
Gone too far, Tom Cook. Slandering my wife, ruining her good reputation.
Her reputation was ruined the day she married you.
He's dangerous for any woman in terms of her morality.
When he slanders his neighbor Jack Grisby's wife, Jack sees red. But Tom's sharp tongue is matched by his sharp shooting.
He was doing it a lot for his own titillation. The impact of that was his reputation in the community was deeply soiled.
Should not have drawn against me, Jack.
Well, Jack died the next day, and Tom turned himself into the authorities.
Tom Cook is charged with murder.
Based on the fact that Jack actually had a gun and did try to draw it, it was considered self-defense.
The powerful landowner gets off scot-free.
How do you expect me to live like this?
It's the last straw for his long-suffering wife, Katie.
I beg of you to give up this ungodly behavior. Renounce yourself and you will be forgiven.
She tried to persuade him to change his evil ways, to come back into their marriage and forgo these other women.
And resign myself to your frigid little ways. I will have any woman I want. Whenever I want!
The man was the king of his castle. What he said and the way he wanted it was the way it usually went.
Tom wants more than one maiden in this castle.
Didn't think she was gonna let you come.
Don't worry about her.
He starts an affair with servant Mabel Moody. While his wife listens in.
She would have been mortified by her husband's behavior.
August 28th, 1899. Once again, Tom returns from Mabel's chambers and enjoys the sleep of the righteous.
Mabel Moody is a catalyst. This is the precipitating fact of her going off the edge.
Katie had had enough. Without saying a word, She approached her husband, point blank, point the gun at his head.
A single bullet finally ends her husband's depravity.
Katie Cook was a woman pushed over the edge by a vile, philandering husband.
Ranch hand Jim Barton quickly takes charge.
Best to give me the revolver, Katie.
You took him. You took him from me.
Katie lays the blame on Tom's new lover.
She accused Mabel of ruining the marriage and being the cause of the tragedy.
The only way she could leave the marriage was through death of either her or her husband. Katie won that argument.
Katie Cook is arrested and charged with murder.
She, in fact, confessed, but at that point, she has no more recollection.
In her case, it may be true. She was probably temporarily insane when she killed Tom.
For the prosecution, it's an open and shut case.
I've got the gun, I've got a dead man, and I've got a confession. Pretty simple. Pretty simple.
But in the eyes of this God-fearing community, Katie was simply freeing herself from an immoral man.
Oh, sir.
It definitely was no gray area in this. It was definitely black and white. Tom was bad, Katie was good.
He's an enemy of the community. And Katie did us a big favor.
The jury deliberates for just 15 minutes to find Katie Cook not guilty of murder.
The verdict's not guilty, rather than not guilty by reason of insanity. They just step up and say, no, Tom Cook deserved to die.
When Katie returns to her farm, she finds comfort in the arms of loyal ranch hand Jim Barton.
They became an item quite soon after the acquittal.
Seems Katie is just as smitten with the servants as her dead husband.
Katie ended up marrying Barton, raising suspicions in the community of something going on.
To my glorious wife and a bright future together.
Because the Pete Ranch was extremely valuable.
To this day, the folk of Santa Ana wonder, did she kill to escape her depraved marriage? Or was Katie Cook a calculating, deadly woman?
I don't know. It's a lot of questions will never be answered. But bottom line is I think that Katie did get away with murder.
Thank you.
When a woman loves money,
I mean, this was a way to enrich her own holdings.
You don't look so good.
more than marriage,
I don't think she liked him.
husbands better watch out.
She hurt someone she was taking care of, and she did it over and over again.
(1981), Louisville, Kentucky. Newlyweds Pauline and Luther Rogers are celebrating a fresh start together.
You look happy together. Yeah, I lucked out.
They lived in a upper middle class neighborhood.
Time for dinner.
She was not denied anything that a woman would want or need in a marital situation.
No. Here.
Okay.
Thank you.
45-year-old Pauline is the perfect hostess.
Now you wait till y'all taste the food.
Attractive, charming, and a whiz in the kitchen.
Bon appetit.
Luther saw in Pauline what everybody else saw in Pauline. A sweet, loving, devoted wife.
Well, you did not lie, Luther. This is delicious.
Luther discovers Pauline's not just a good cook. She has a green thumb. But within months, all is not well in this Garden of Eden. Luther falls ill.
You don't look so good.
Think I got flu.
In a short period of time, he went from a very alive person to frail and hobbling along.
I'll get you something.
Pauline does her best to care for Luther at home.
He had been complaining of stomach aches, and there are remedies through drugstores and so forth available, and she obviously bought those for him so that it would coat his stomach and make him feel better.
But her husband goes downhill fast.
He could pursue no other usual activities in his life as he became progressively more wasted and incapacitated.
The only way she knows to soothe his sickness is with Luther's favorite dessert, strawberry ice cream.
One would get the picture that she's a doting wife and trying to ease some health difficulty he had.
For Pauline, it's a painful reminder of her past. Five years earlier, her last husband, Morris, was plagued by similar symptoms.
He was a fairly healthy person of his age.
Hey, Johnny.
He was not a person who had been struck with illnesses over his years.
Despite Pauline's constant care, Morris is admitted into the hospital.
Physicians could not understand the constellation of his symptoms.
The devoted wife maintains a bedside vigil.
It's so sad. She hasn't left his side.
Now, her next husband, Luther, is also in the hospital, with Pauline refusing to leave his side.
Don't worry. We'll find out what's wrong with him.
But behind this caring smile lies a sinister soul.
Pauline had a lot of people fooled. Neighbors, doctors, and especially her husbands. But she wasn't what she seemed.
In 1982, Louisville, Kentucky. devoted wife Pauline Rogers watches helplessly as her 40-year-old husband Luther withers away.
He was just cramping and doubling up, virtually on the brink of death.
Can't the doctor do something?
He's run some tests. He's getting us to run some more.
Because of his appearance and the abnormalities in all sorts of organ systems, a huge number of tests would have been employed.
I bought ice cream. Can he have any?
Yeah, that's fine. He'll probably enjoy that.
Pauline knows exactly how to calm her ailing husband. His favorite treat.
The picture of a very attentive wife in front of health caregivers in hospital is one that's repeated.
On May 18th, 1982, Luther's test results come back.
The urine testing that was done in the toxicology laboratory showed really astronomical quantities of urinary arsenic, indicating that his tissues were saturated and the body was doing the best it could to excrete it out. He was loaded with arsenic.
You've been poisoned.
The last thing that a doctor ever thinks of is that the patient was poisoned.
Who would do this to you?
The hospital alerts authorities.
This triggered an investigation of previous social events, including previous marriages of Pauline Rogers.
Could be any time now.
What they find is that Pauline's last husband, Morris Amos, died of a mysterious illness.
We decided to exhume the first husband's body and get the coroner to do an autopsy to find out the cause of death. The cause of death was poison.
Morris was a generous husband in life, even more so in death.
Benefits from a life insurance policy, benefits from property, which was in the marital name.
This was a financial gain for her.
Police wonder how two men could be poisoned under the noses of medical staff.
She had to continue the poisoning in the hospital if she was going to be effective as a murderer.
The answer lies in a hospital wastebasket. An ice cream container laced with arsenic.
That may have been an oversight on her part, but it also could have been arrogance. She had gotten away with poisoning for so long, she stopped worrying about getting caught.
Pauline's been combining her two passions, cooking and gardening.
At that time, there was a readily available commercial product that was an insecticide. The purpose was to kill ants and other insects. And the toxic substance contained in it was arsenic. It has no aroma, it has no taste, but it's eminently lethal.
Lucky for Pauline, both husbands had a sweet tooth.
Eat this then.
Most people love ice cream. He anxiously ate the ice cream, not knowing that the poison was there. That was a very methodical, very vicious way of killing.
When people looked at Pauline, they saw a sweet, dutiful, devoted, nursing wife, because that's what they wanted to see. They didn't see a deadly woman.
In 1983, Lucy Pauline Rogers pleads guilty to the murder of her third husband, Morris Lee Amos. She receives 20 years in prison.
I think Pauline will be a danger to society if she gets out and goes into the food preparation business.
When it comes to serial poisoners, eventually, no one around them is truly safe.
She is also convicted of the attempted murder of Luther Rogers and receives an additional 20 years.
Had he lived much longer, especially with the attentiveness of his poisoning wife, he certainly would have died.
The overt symptoms that he had after enduring all this poisoning was that he was confined to a wheelchair. He was a frail individual. Literally, he had been a changed person overnight.
He is now terminally tortured.
Pauline Rogers' pitiless greed spawned some good. Hospitals in Louisville have since introduced strict rules to report suspected poisonings.
Pauline probably would know that she has helped to save people's lives from poisoning because we now have stronger protocols that will stop that in the future.
Some women believe in magic.
She would select a man who she thought could support her financially.
A sprinkle of secret potion.
She was a skilled con woman.
What, you started without me?
And all their headaches are gone.
Her nickname, Kiss of Death, was a well-deserved nickname.
(1934), South Philadelphia. 37-year-old Rose Carina is a blushing bride. Again.
Rose married for the fourth time. This time she selected a wealthy man who owned a grocery store.
Rose has been unlucky in love, but hopes Peter Stay will be the one. Peter couldn't be happier.
She needed someone. A man needs a woman. She was a great cook. She was a great homemaker, and he thought she would be fine.
Good morning. How are you, Ada? You're okay?
Rose is also a successful saleswoman for a tailor in town. Her boss, Paul Petrillo, thinks she's his best employee.
Paul immigrated from Italy in 1910. He had a lot of business sense. He opened a tailor shop. He was quite successful.
Rose and Paul make their customers very happy. Not from stylish garments.
This will fix your problems for good. Thank you so much.
They sell a secret potion to wives with troublesome husbands.
The women would come to them.
How are you, Maria?
Well, I have some problems.
And say, my husband, he's no good to me. Can you do something?
One of their best customers is 39-year-old Maria Favato. She's desperate for their help.
Maria had been with Charles for about 10 years now. The relationship was extremely rocky.
What, you started without me?
How dare you? We were waiting.
Rude witch!
He was an alcoholic, he was abusive towards her. He really wasn't a loving or devoted husband.
You don't have to put up with this.
Much to the horror of their tenant, Raphael. On August 5th, 1935, Raphael agrees to help Maria make her problems disappear. Using a sprinkle of Rose's magic potion.
What's this?
Charles was a baker. He came home early one morning.
Hungry?
And they fixed a big breakfast for him. Bottles of wine, a couple chickens, pots of coffee.
It was in his coffee they decided to put the supposed potion.
Clearly, Charles had no idea that his coffee had a little boost that morning.
Charles felt violently ill. And for the next 9 days, he literally suffered every day, going through these great pains. Then on August 14th, he succumbed and died.
Maria is thrilled with the results. She's just one of many satisfied customers lining up for Rose and Paul's secret potion. They are making a killing.
Maria and Rose were part of a very sophisticated, ongoing criminal enterprise.
I don't know that anybody's ever seen anything like this before.
June 29th, 1936, Philadelphia. Successful saleswoman Rose Carina nurses her fourth husband, Peter Stay.
He suddenly felt violently ill. He got quite sick. He was vomiting and everything.
He died of a horrible death, which was attributed to gastroenteritis, as most of these were.
In those days, doctors weren't as well educated as they are today, and they didn't have the testing available they have today.
To the world, it is a tragedy. To Rose and her boss, Paul Petrillo, it's business. The pair stands to collect on Peter's life insurance.
After Peter's death, Rose collected a $500 insurance policy she held on her husband.
A woman doesn't have to be brilliant to see the benefit of a life insurance payout on a dead husband. She just has to be an opportunist and a psychopath.
Rose bid farewell to 2 other husbands the same way, with Paul's secret potion of arsenic. The potion is the heart of a poison ring, with accomplices all over Philadelphia,
He doesn't give me enough to feed us.
I might have a solution.
like Maria Favato,
You need him to sign this.
To join the poison ring, members must first sign up a hapless male for life insurance.
Giuseppe.
What do you want, woman? I'm busy.
Sign up.
The poison ring chose their victims very carefully. They chose ignorant, illiterate men who wouldn't know what they were signing when they signed the insurance policy.
Now leave me alone.
The beneficiaries, poison ring members. It's a pyramid scheme of murder.
After setting up several of the policies,
The men would be poisoned.
and their husbands died a horrible death.
And then the poison ring would collect the insurance money that came from it.
Giuseppe. Giuseppe.
In bedrooms all over Philadelphia, members are murdering husbands and other relatives.
You had doctors, lawyers, medical examiners, all kinds of different people were involved in the ring.
There were 30, 40, maybe 50 people murdered. Most of the women killed only one person, except for 2, Maria Favato and Rose Carina.
Come on now. You must keep your strength. Come on.
Maria even kills her own stepson.
The poison ring became Maria's source of income, and she really didn't care who she had to target to keep that income coming in.
Every time a serial killer gets away with murder, they feel more and more invincible that they can do it again and not get caught. And so they do.
For 5 years, the Philadelphia poison ring is big business. Until the law catches up in 1939.
The ring got caught because one of the major conspirators was a counterfeiter.
And the men behind the operation sing like canaries.
As these guys began to talk, they pointed the finger at everybody they could think of.
They gave up Maria, they gave up Rose, they gave up, everyone involved in the poison ring.
There were 30 defendants, 30 people charged with murder.
But in Philadelphia's biggest murder case, not all perpetrators are treated equally. Ringleader Paul Petrillo pleads guilty and is sentenced to death by electric chair. Others, including Maria Favato, receive life imprisonment.
She was often referred to as the witch because of her involvement in potions.
But the law looks differently on Rose Corina. The businesswoman is smart enough and rich enough to hire a good lawyer.
She was more involved. She killed more people. There was more evidence against her than anyone else. And he convinced the jury otherwise.
Rose is acquitted of all charges. The serial bride is free to live happily ever after.
It was very easy for Rose to become a serial killer because she only cared about herself and money. Rose cared about Rose.
When these women walked down the aisle, they were wedded to murder. Katie Cook chose a deadly sin over an immoral life. Pauline Rogers ensured her husbands got their just desserts. And the widows of the poison ring concocted a potion for profit. These deadly women refused to love, honor, or obey. They were brutal brides. When it comes to murder, two minds are better than one. An illicit affair ends with a bang.
It was a trick, a cold-hearted trick.
A nurse gives her patients too much TLC.
She completely bamboozled him with sexual control.
And a greedy niece speeds up her inheritance.
Last chance.
It was very callous, very unnecessary, very unforgiving.
These deadly women like company when they kill. For them, it takes two to terminate. Morgan City, Louisiana, 1927. A bayou town on the banks of the Atchafalaya River.
The South doesn't get any deeper than Morgan City, Louisiana.
Enjoying a leisurely life as one of the Southern gentry is 38-year-old Ada LaBeouf.
Very good, you learned.
Socioeconomically, they were at the top of the heap.
Her 42-year-old husband, James, has a high-powered job.
James was very important. He ran the power company as a superintendent, and that meant a lot of time away from home.
But money can't buy happiness.
I didn't know you'd be home so early.
After 20 years and 4 children, it's a loveless marriage.
There was so much tension in that home, and there was so much volatility between the two of them.
Husband James is often away on business for days at a time.
How long will you be away?
4 days.
Ada ensures she is never alone for long.
Dr. Dreer was the real deal. He was the country doctor that made house calls and actually cared about his patients.
You never miss a signal.
Of course not.
His patients came first, especially Ada LaBouffe.
What seems to be ailing you today?
I have a terrible headache.
For Ada, Dr. Thomas Dreher's excellent bedside manner is between the sheets.
Dr. Dreher risked a great deal. He was the most respected member of the community. He was married and had children. He would have lost all of that if this affair had come to light.
Ada ensures her lover never crosses paths with her husband.
Ada and her lover set up a code so he would know when it was safe to come over. She'd hang a pillow slip up in the window, indicating that the coast was clear.
Neither lover can afford to get caught. They go to great lengths to hide their love.
The cover of respectability is what really helped the two of them. She was married to somebody kind of important. He was a doctor beloved by everybody in town, so they were able to get away with this for a quite long time.
I'll be home to prepare the dinner.
Their secret rendezvous occur at the family home and down by the river. The comings and goings start to arouse suspicion.
We both know where she's off to.
There was a lot of gossip. It's a small town, so people are talking about it.
James must be the only one in town who doesn't.
Pretty much everybody knew.
The scandal is exposed when the good doctor's wife, Gertrude, receives an anonymous letter.
Mr. LaBouffe.
Whatever's the matter?
And the note said something like, you know, there's some partying going on down in the shack on the bayou, and it's your husband, and it's Ada.
Mrs. Dreher takes it and shows it to James LaBouffe. Not a smart move.
Thomas? And my wife?
But she goes there, and LaBouffe goes round the bend.
Why, those filthy traitors.
Humiliated by his wife's affair, James can't contain his rage.
Treacherous whore!
What?
James is livid. He is very, very mad and very upset and hurt.
Infidelity with the doctor.
No, I promise.
So he goes to Ada and said, look, is this going on? If it's true?
Lie, the whole town knows.
She denies it.
He's only treating my headaches.
Give you a headache.
Hey! Stop it! Stop it!
James doesn't believe her. He takes matters into his own hands.
James is so convinced that that affair is true that he wants to kind of catch the doctor.
James vows revenge and goes to extraordinary lengths to trap his nemesis.
He would dress in his wife's clothes and ride around town with a shotgun on the seat next to him, hoping that the doctor would see him and mistake him for his wife, Ada, and the doctor would come up to the car, and then James could kill him with the shotgun. This is not a man with his head screwed on straight.
James will do anything to settle the score. But he's not the only one setting a trap.
He was no match for that woman.
A warm warm summer's night in Morgan City, Louisiana, 1927. Ada LaBeouf springs a surprise date on her husband, James. It's not in a fancy restaurant. It's in a humble canoe.
Let's enjoy ourselves like we used to.
After the affair came out, Ada tried to make amends with her husband by suggesting a moonlight boat ride.
The rage James feels over his wife's affair melts away tonight.
It was moonlit night on a lake. They started paddling out.
Come on.
But there will be no romance tonight.
Another boat appeared.
Wonder whom the devil that is.
Ada has invited other guests.
Almost there.
Her lover, Dr. Thomas Dreher, and his hired henchman, James Beadle.
It was a trick, a cold-hearted trick. Ada convinced her lover that her husband was probably going to kill him if he didn't kill her husband first.
What the heck are you two doing here?
Say goodbye to your wife. Ada, you get out of here.
The men bring the tools needed to conceal their crime.
James LaBeouf's body was cut open from the chest down to the pubic bone. This exposed all of the intestines. The murderers removed the intestines, much like gutting a deer or field dressing a deer.
Every detail of this murder is planned.
Cutting out the intestinal organs was brilliant because it made certain the body would not float. Weighing it down with angle irons was also brilliant because it made sure the body would stay on the bottom.
Well done, Beadle.
There is just one problem with their perfect plot.
The unfortunate part for them was they dumped the body on a sandbar at a high tide. The waters receded and some frog giggers came and found the body.
If they had taken the body a few feet further and dropped it in deeper water, I think they would have gotten away with murder.
When the body is identified, the police soon get wind of Ada's affair.
We know about you and the doctor. Make it easy for yourself. Tell the truth.
It wasn't my idea.
She confesses to knowing of the shooting, but claims she's innocent.
I really don't know what happened.
She blames her lover, Thomas.
Ada threw him under the bus so fast, claiming that she and her husband were out for a nice boat ride, and the doctor and James Beadle came out of nowhere and shot her husband. Of course, that wasn't true.
Thomas and his henchman also turn on each other.
Nobody took responsibility for anything that night. It was just sort of a, finger-pointing match, and Ada was right in the middle of it all.
Police have to figure out who to charge.
A hunter would be more practiced in that art. A surgeon would not. But a surgeon would certainly know how to do it.
In the end, in 1927, all three are found guilty of first-degree murder. James Beadle is sentenced to life in prison.
James Beadle is just a simpleton, really. He's a pawn in this whole game between Ada and the doctor.
A harsher sentence is handed down to Dr. Thomas Dreher and Ada LaBeouf. Both are sentenced to death.
There's no doubt that Ada was the mastermind, that she was the one that was making every bit of this thing happen.
In February 1929, Ada becomes the first woman to hang in Louisiana.
Just before she was hung, Ada complained to the hangman that the rope was too tight. She had no idea how tight that rope was going to get.
Ada's insatiable lust for excitement costs 3 lives and leaves her 4 children orphans.
I think Dr. Dreher and the affair Ada had offered her something she hadn't had in 20 years, being married to James. Affection, sex, and I'm sure it was very thrilling, and she got swept away.
A nurse dedicated to caring.
She needs to be loved by everybody. She needs to be perfect.
Gives her patients too much attention.
She used the psychiatric unit as a hunting grounds.
And must remedy her mistakes.
Failure was not an option for her.
In 1996, Sydney, Australia. Psychiatric nurse Kathy Yo is devoted to her patients at the rehabilitation clinic.
Kathy was a really talented young lady, and she'd also risen very, very quickly through the nursing ranks to clinical nurse manager by the time she was 26.
Kathy steps on a few toes on her way up.
Susan, can you go to supplies? We're out of stationery.
Kathy wasn't very well liked by her colleagues at the hospital. They regarded her as being uppity and bossy, and they didn't really like working with her.
She's not only bossy. Kathy takes her role as a carer a little too seriously.
Kathy had had an affair with one of the patients.
I know what medicine you need.
She used the psychiatric unit where she met many people as a hunting ground to find sexual partners. Highly unethical, but she did it.
The patient, Mark, checks into rehab to kick his habit. He is soon addicted to another vice.
You've got someone who's at a very, very low point in their life, and she's also got him under her spell sexually.
Patients on psychiatric units or rehab units don't need intimate help from staff members. It would only make things worse.
It's not like Kathy needs the attention. She's living with a man who adores her.
Raymond and Kathy had been together for about 3.5 years in a very passionate and tempestuous relationship.
What's it like, babe?
Usual problems.
41-year-old Raymond Galea is putty in her hands.
I'm a bit tired.
Do you want me to give you a rub?
She was a very controlling and dominating woman who picked these vulnerable puppy dog men who were prepared to do anything for her.
Ray is blissfully unaware of Kathy's other life.
She was living with him, but she wanted more. Kathy might have been drawn to the high-risk nature of the relationship. It was illicit.
Risk is a double-edged sword. Kathy's strange behavior starts tongues wagging.
She was called in by the assistant director of nursing and confronted about it.
Kathy, these are serious allegations.
They're outrageous allegations.
Witnesses have come forward.
When she was brought in to see her bosses, she actually denied it.
I would never.
And started dry retching. That, she could never do that. And she obviously did a good job because she got to keep her job.
Kathy salvages her career, but doesn't learn her lesson.
Eventually, the relationship with Mark ended. But it wasn't long before Kathy found another victim.
31-year-old Christopher Dorian is battling a heroin addiction.
He had a 10-year-old son, and he also worked part-time as a kitchen hand. He'd had some troubles in his past, but he was also studying at university and was doing quite well. So he really was on the road to getting his life back.
Hi, I'm Kathy, one of your nurses.
Hi.
Kathy gives Chris her special attention.
You study?
It's this computer stuff,
Chris was very, very vulnerable. He needed assistance and support, not sexual involvement with the staff member.
Before long, Chris and the nurse can't keep their hands off each other.
She was visiting him every day. Which started to ring alarm bells all through the hospital.
Before there's an investigation, Chris checks out of rehab. And Kathy checks out with her old boyfriend.
I just can't understand it.
I told you, I met someone. He's my true soulmate.
When Chris was discharged from his treatment program, the relationship with Kathy became more intense, so much so that this time she left Raymond.
Ray was devastated when Kathy ended the relationship.
It's over.
But Kathy is now obsessed with her new conquest.
Kathy keeps a journal, and in one of her entries, she details her love for Christopher. And she says, I cannot and will not live without Christopher. He has spoken of marriage, and I can't imagine any other man that I would be able to be married to.
Within days of moving in, Chris is having second thoughts.
Where have you been?
I worked overtime. I want to get my kids something nice.
What about me?
Huh?
What did you get me?
The relationship between Kathy and Chris started to deteriorate rather quickly.
The psych nurse can't cope with rejection.
Kathy was deathly afraid of failure. I think failure was not an option for her.
Early June 1997, in Sydney, Australia. 26-year-old psychiatric nurse Kathy Yo moves in with her former patient, Chris Dorian.
She says he completes her and that he is an integral part of her life.
But Chris is not so sure.
Come on, it's a Friday.
The magic they shared at the clinic has disappeared.
The honeymoon period ended very quickly.
You want me, John, don't you?
Don't blame your weaknesses on me.
Get away from me.
Don't talk to me like that.
Get out, right?
And only a week after they moved in together, there were already drunken fights and arguments.
Kathy has only one person to turn to.
What does she do? She calls the old boyfriend to come and get her.
He dropped everything in the early hours of the morning and came over and picked her up from the house.
She deserves better than you.
Raymond had been dumped by Kathy for another man.
Come on, let's go.
But he was still her lapdog and would do anything she wanted.
There's something more Kathy wants from Ray.
Ray?
And it's not his love.
Kathy went to Ray's place and took a gun out of a locked safe.
She doesn't take kindly to being dumped.
Kathy was very afraid of being rejected. She needs to be loved by everybody. She needs to be accepted. She needs to be perfect.
You and I should get back together.
Kathy is desperate to get her new lover back.
I said no, all right? You need to leave.
Chris has obviously come to his senses during that time, and he tells Kathy that it's over.
Just get out!
He said to her, "You've ruined my life."
That's enough to push Kathy over the edge.
She was enraged.
Fueled by a fear of being rejected, fueled by fear of being found out that she was still having an affair with a patient.
Nobody dumps me.
No, Kathy, don't!
She shoots Chris in the head.
It's easy to use a gun to kill somebody. It doesn't take a lot of force to simply move your finger and pull a trigger. In some ways, it was almost too easy for her.
Ray, I need your help again.
The first thing that Kathy does when she's in trouble, she rings Ray, and Ray comes running.
She made a deal with Raymond. She said, "Help me get rid of the body, and I'll go back with you."
Kathy had these blokes wrapped around her finger.
Kathy doesn't want to get caught with a body.
They dismembered it.
She wants to erase her lover's identity.
They then get a black bag, sports bag, which is Ray's, and they put Chris's head in the bag with his identification. And they go down to the Cooks River and they throw it off into the water.
Nurse Kathy thinks the river will forever hold her secret. But it doesn't. 2 weeks later, the sports bag washes up on shore.
As far as the rest of the body pieces, nobody knows where they are because they've never been found.
Inside the bag, Kathy has left cops a convenient clue.
If you're trying to get away with a murder, it really doesn't make sense to most people to put the victim's identification in with his head. Police discovered Chris had been a patient at Roselle Hospital and that he had been having an affair with Kathy. She automatically became the prime suspect in the murder.
Her faithful servant Ray is also incriminated.
The 3 bullets found inside Chris's head had come from Raymond's gun.
Raymond Galea is found guilty of accessory after the fact to murder. He is sentenced to 5 years behind bars.
she'd ruined his life. You know, she'd taken a pretty upstanding kind of guy, completely bamboozled him with sexual control and made him a murderer after the fact.
Kathy Yo is convicted of murder.
She was found guilty and sentenced to 24 years before she's eligible for parole. She's right where she needs to be.
Trained to care for others, Kathy instead fed her own addiction, preying on weak, vulnerable men.
Kathy may have thought she had a strong hold over men, but she didn't have a hold of Chris. Unfortunately for Chris, that's why he's dead.
They say blood is thicker than water, but a lust for riches.
The goal was to get the money.
Beats everything.
Very callous. Very unnecessary.
Carthage, a small rural city in Leake County, Mississippi, June 1983. 46-year-old Vernice Ballinger's morning routine is interrupted by a newspaper article about her aunt, Myrtle Ellis. The 75-year-old has been in a car accident, but that's not why she's made the papers.
She had a large sum of cash with her in the vehicle when it happened, approximately $60,000.
An elderly woman driving around with so much cash is highly unusual.
That amount of money in 1983 would be about $200,000 today.
I just want to make sure you're okay. Okay, sit tight. I'll be over in a minute, okay?
The fact that she had that money was reported in the local newspaper, which may or may not have been a wise thing to do.
Vernice thinks it's very unwise. Her aunt lives alone in the country.
By all accounts, she was just a gentle, elderly lady.
Oh, does that hurt?
Her niece fears the publicity will make Myrtle a target for thieves.
What were you doing carrying all that cash around in the car? You could have been mugged.
But I wasn't.
Vernice wants to make sure Myrtle's money is safe.
Where's the money now?
In the bank.
Really?
Miss Ellis told Miss Ballinger that she no longer had the money at her house or on her person, but had deposited into the bank. Miss Ballinger did not believe her. She thought that it would still be at her home.
And she is not the only one. On July 9th, 1983, Vernice's worst fears come true.
What are you doing here?
He approached Miss Ellis, wanting to know where the money was.
Where's the cash?
The two robbers think this job will be a piece of cake.
When Myrtle was asked to hand over the money, she said she didn't have it. It was in the bank.
No, it's in the bank.
Don't lie to me.
They didn't believe her, or at least weren't satisfied with their answer.
It's in the bank.
When intimidation doesn't work,
Please.
they use brute force.
This was a cowardly act. Two grown men decided to beat up a frail 75-year-old woman.
He even went to the point of placing the pistol up to her head.
Where is it?
And pull the trigger.
The gun isn't loaded, but it is still a weapon.
They then began to beat her, and beat her even more severely.
They hit her so many times that she lost consciousness.
All right, search the place.
After Miss Ellis could not or would not tell them where they thought the money should be, they proceeded to search for it.
Let's go, let's go, let's go!
The men flee empty-handed, leaving the elderly woman beaten and unconscious.
It would take a very cold person to be willing to resort to doing harm to a lady like Miss Ellis just for a little bit of money.
But Aunt Myrtle is made of tough stuff.
Myrtle was a spicy old gal, and she did not go down easily.
She regains consciousness and drags herself outside.
She was having difficulty breathing. Her face was bloodied. Her limbs hurt. In effect, she was running for her life. When she dragged herself outside, she was afraid they might return.
And they do. Her attackers return with help to finish the job. They find Myrtle outside and assume she's dead.
She's done for.
They set about destroying any evidence they might have left.
Then they proceeded to burn down the house. Thankfully, she was not in it.
Firefighters can't save the house, but they can save the victim they find in the garden.
Do you know who did this to you?
Myrtle recognized one of the thugs, but won't say who it is.
She told them that she knew who had done it, but she didn't want to say anything. She didn't want to get them in more trouble.
Okay, that's it. Get some oxygen now. Okay, Myrtle, nice deep breaths.
Police are baffled by the crime and Myrtle's tight lips. She's protecting someone. But who and why? In Carthage, Mississippi, July 9th, 1983. A brutal home invasion leaves 75-year-old Myrtle Ellis fighting for her life.
Myrtle, do you know who did this to you?
She knows who attacked her.
Who was it? Get some oxygen now.
But won't reveal their identity.
The fact that she knew who did it, but didn't want to get them into trouble. This tells me that she was forgiving, that she was kind.
Police have no leads, and they get no more information from Myrtle. She dies 10 days later, taking her secrets to the grave.
Myrtle's chest injuries were the equivalent of having a concrete block dropped on your chest from a second-story window.
Myrtle Ellis was a sweet old lady, but she died a horrible death.
The crime could have remained unsolved, except for a bizarre chance encounter 9 years later.
It was quite by accident that the group of killers was caught.
Police go to a house to serve some civil papers. But the female resident thinks they've come for a different reason.
When she saw law enforcement, in her front yard. She blurted out before she knew what the real reason for being there was.
You hear about that murder my husband committed in 1983.
And of course, that got the ball rolling.
It's the home of James Head, one of Myrtle's killers. He soon confesses and names his co-killer, Ronald Ritter. But he insists they're hired hitmen. That the brutal murder is a family affair.
Guys. Hey.
Organized by Vernice Ballinger. She asks her husband, Mac, to find some thugs.
I brought you guys in on this, all right? I could have run anyway.
This is no loving niece.
Any questions?
Where is it?
Well, somewhere in the house. Check the doll she's mended, the seat cushions, and check her bra. I don't know, check everywhere.
Vernice actually told the men who were going to rob her aunt to tear her house apart to find the money.
I'll give y'all $10,000 each for your trouble.
She drives her gang of thieves to Myrtle's home.
Front door's always open. She sits in that same chair every day.
Bernice and the other three rode out to Miss Ellis's house. This was a scouting expedition, I suppose you could call it.
You're gonna need these.
Vernice wants them to terrorize the money from her aunt.
Vernice supplied weapons, guns, to the men.
But she won't be there personally. Vernice will be safely at home.
She's somewhat of a coward, sending somebody else to do the dirty work.
Mac is the lookout.
Hello?
It starts as a robbery, but things don't go according to plan.
Where's the cash?
I haven't got it.
The men return to Vernice empty-handed.
Well?
They got nothing.
Her henchmen bungle the job.
Well, did she see you?
Well, I don't think so.
And leave one loose end.
She was concerned that Miss Ellis may have seen the vehicle they were traveling in and recognized it, or that she may have seen Mac Ballinger.
You get back there and you make sure she can't talk. Well, do it!
Come on, you two.
Vernice wanted her aunt killed because she needed to eliminate a witness.
Vernice gets her wish. Her aunt dies, and the fire destroys all the evidence. Until a slip of the tongue unravels the whole plot.
I would expect that something like that happening was the last thing that Miss Ballinger would have expected to happen. She probably thought she had gotten away with it.
Ronald Ritter, James Head, and Mac Ballinger are found guilty of murder and sentenced to life.
All of the men turned on Vernice as the mastermind of this crime.
In 1993, Vernice Ballinger is found guilty of capital murder. She is sentenced to death for a senseless crime.
Vernice's aunt told her the money was in the bank, but Vernice wasn't very bright and simply didn't believe her. Vernice could think of only one thing, and the truth didn't matter. She wanted that money.
Vernice is not executed. She dies in prison of natural causes in 2002.
She died a lonely old woman in her prison cell. For Vernice, crime did not pay.
These deadly women not only kept bad company, they put it to use. Ada LaBeouf and her lover cheated her husband out of his life. Kathy Yo was no Florence Nightingale. And Vernice Ballinger hired goons to kill her aunt. Murder was not a game they wanted to play alone. For these women, it took two to terminate.